Hey guys, STLYoungblood with you, and we got ourselves another Patron Roundtable. This time we're going to be covering 3 different sections. With us, you've seen all 3 of these guys before in previous episodes. We've got Clem Morale, Brento73, and Rockseeker. And basically, we're going to have a slight change in how this is actually presented to you this time. Previous ones we've actually had run for an hour, a little bit over an hour, and I know I personally have some issues actually sitting down to watch a video that long a lot of times. That's why I kind of do the summarize the first videos, because I know a lot of you had that issue. So we're going to break this down into 3 segments, and you can kind of see what we're going to be talking about below. And in this first segment, we're going to really focus on the move towards industry ships and salvage as far as the career and how it's going to work. So before we actually jump into that, let's go ahead and just run down the line. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, guys. Clem, why don't we start with you?
Hey, Clem. Clem Morale, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I've seen it murdered some very fun ways. You can catch me over at Clem Gaming on YouTube, and just fun to be back.
Perfect. Brento?
Yeah, Brento73. That's pretty easy for people to get. So, yeah, I've got a YouTube channel, Brent Odell, or I think you can search Brento73. Mostly music. Yeah, glad to be back. I think I've been in all of them so far. So.
Popular guest.
What that says about me, but a lot of free time, I guess.
All right, and Rockseeker.
Rockseeker. I'm part of the United Earth Mining Corporation, the UMC, the largest mining corporation, and one of the leader. And I'm happy to be here. I'm a patron of STL also, and always like the idea of Star Citizen. So, yeah.
Always good to talk shop. So, all right. So basically, what we're going to talk about in this first segment here, salvage and industry ships. The community as a whole, I think we're all pretty aware is, as soon as a ship gets released, there's a bevy of comments on Reddit out there. Just great, another military ship. The Eclipse came out and great, it's a bomber. Sure, it's stealthy, but it's still another bomber. Do we really need that? I think we've gotten confirmation from CIG that at least for the time being, we're probably hit at the end of the military ships that are going to be coming out, which probably has implications towards the development of, I guess, Squadron 42, but we're not going to touch on that today. But focusing in on more of, we're moving towards industry ships, and what we really mean by that is mining, salvage, cargo, repairs, basically all the ships that we've seen that have kind of been in concept but haven't necessarily been developed yet and brought to us. So I guess in regards to just the industry ships that we've got coming, I don't even know if I would include the 600i in that category. I mean, it's not a combat ship, but what it'll end up being, it's hard to say. It's hard to really classify a luxury ship as going to be industry. So I guess let's just talk about the Reclaimer to start with, because that's the one that's kind of been the fan favorite in ATVs right now. So let's just start off simple. What do you guys think about the work that we've seen done on the Reclaimer so far?
I just need to know if the grinder's going to have a plank. I mean...
That's for a pirate Reclaimer, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, that's probably for beating Pirate Swarm. That's the new Caterpillar one. You get a pirate skin Reclaimer that comes with a plank.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
wow.
where's your cash for your loot there?
That's
or
right.
You jump the plank. Yeah. So the big claw is going to be interesting to see too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god! I mean, it is.
Oh, absolutely.
In the
It's
concept
huge.
art, it looked big. In the actual engine and concepting work that they're doing now, it's massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, as far as the way this is all going to work, talking just the Reclaimer and the way it's going to fly, I'm curious to see how it actually ends up being implemented, because obviously that claw doesn't look super articulated, at least to me. It's not like you're going to park your ship and it's going to pull a 90-degree angle and grab something. I mean, unless I missed something in the art. So, I think where it's going to be a situation probably not unlike what we know is going to happen with the Orion. How do you guys envision that actually being used as a crew?
Well, the claw is there to hold the ship in front. So basically, whatever wreck you have, the claw is going to come and grab it. And then if you look carefully, there's articulated arms on the side that with the cutters, and these can fold back to basically cut small pieces, grab them, move them back, and dump them somewhere in the grinder in the back. So the big claw is just there so that the wreck and the Reclaimer are like one big immovable piece, right?
Yeah. Part of me looks at the Reclaimer and says that it's almost got some possibilities of almost being functional like a prospector in a way. You know, a lot of the work's probably going to be done in the front of the ship, so if some of the controls can actually be done by the pilot, I think that's where you get some ability. So I wonder about the solo ability of the ship, and if there's any way that... It's obviously a huge ship, you know, it's not a solo ship. You're probably going to want some NPCs on there, but I bet you can do some pretty simplistic things with a minimal crew. I think it's when you start talking about using things like the drones and what's the little device that they talk, the flyable cutter that you can drive around almost like a forklift. You know, I think there's some ways where you start getting into, you know, maximum efficiency there, but it's going to be a really interesting ship to see how people interact with each other.
Well, I think you're looking at a difference. Say if you go out to, you know, reclaim a Gladius, that's going to be a little different than, hey, we found an Idris, we need to take it apart. Right. And I'm curious about the component side of that. You know, you pull out, you know, there's 5 good components and 4 bad ones. You reprocess the bad ones, and now you've got a couple. You can clean them up, get them going. You know, maybe that's where a lot of the profit's going to come from. Is just those overclocked components you might acquire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, metal's not going to be worth as much as if you can find some stuff that still works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a distinction that we're almost going to see between a dedicated salvage ship and what anybody can do. You know, if you could all of a sudden get the ability to put some sort of salvage, I guess, equipment in the back of your Cutlass, for example, and you drive up to a wreck, you know, you're not going to be taking all the scrap metal there. You don't have a way to process it. The return on investment's not going to be great. But if you can take out a cutter, cut off, you know, some avionics modules, or potentially, you know, even just a weapon off of the wingtip, you know, I think that's probably your day-to-day salvage. I think when you start talking Reclaimer, I think that's where you start getting into the advanced, I'm taking everything with me.
Right.
Or you chewing everything, basically. Yeah. You don't leave anything behind.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, you said the Prospector. That's got me wondering, are we going to get a Prospector-sized version of the Reclaimer? That's something I'm very excited about.
Well, we have the Orion.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm getting at. Is I want a smaller one. I want a tow truck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the Reclaimer's not going to work for going and picking up a Gladius.
Well, it could,
so
but
basically,
probably not cost effective.
A small salvaging prospector size ship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I think smaller salvager, I don't necessarily think prospector size. I think more like probably freelancer size, maybe even constellation sized. I think something in that realm is probably where you get the kind of the balance, because the prospector does a lot of its work up front, where it actually breaks down the asteroid or the planet into smaller components, and then it starts getting moved throughout the ship. And the detachable saddlebags. When you start talking about reclaiming, a ship itself, a grinder. I mean, who knows? I mean, we're in the space age. Maybe there's an ability to do all that up front. But if you're able to handle everything externally of the ship, it almost makes you wonder why there's the giant grinder inside the Reclaimer. So, I have questions about implementation on a smaller salvage ship, but I think it's probably undoubtedly one of the more requested ships that we're probably gonna see coming.
Well, I mean, not just in terms of I want to be able to process the whole ship. What about a ship that can go out, latch onto something, and then quantum jump that ship back to another position? Because now that's not something we have, other than drag it inside.
Oh, so that's not even what the Reclaimer is about.
Yeah, that's more. Well, you don't have to be large. I mean, imagine something that's like you were saying, Connie size, that just has stupid large engines and oversized power plants to handle that quantum jump.
Yeah, almost like a tugboat tow
right.
truck in a way. I mean, that almost is like a mini Reclaimer in a way, or not Reclaimer, Crucible in a way. You're not doing repair, but you're bringing a ship back for repairs.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, maybe you've got a nice little position set up. You've got a Reclaimer sitting on one side and a Crucible sitting on the other, and you're just dragging in whatever's left from that battle.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, because the Crucible is good. All the pictures we see, it's with small ships. We don't really see the Crucible next to a large ship. And
I was going to say, wasn't there like
drones?
Wasn't there like one image of like 3 Crucibles on an Idris? I think we saw.
Yeah, the ability of the Crucible, it's a little bit more flexible. You know, the idea is that you're able to connect and kind of create a scaffolding where work can be done on a larger scale. And I think I can't remember if it was an Idris or a Bengal they were talking about, but almost this vision of, you know, this network of crucibles wrapping around a ship, almost creating a semi-space dock to do repairs is an interesting thought. I hadn't even considered a tow truck, to be honest with you. I think that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, quite interesting.
So, okay, so I think Reclaimer seems like it's right around the corner. I mean, granted, you know, I'm one to hesitate to jump to too many conclusions in that regard, just because I don't want to disappoint myself and start crying at night, even though I don't have a Reclaimer. Even though it's certainly been on my mind as far as ships that I suddenly want thanks to the ATV hype and my lack of self-control, obviously.
I'll take one mine.
Well, yeah, I'll get on that. So, I haven't heard a lick about the Orion. I think the whole series that we saw a little bit is progressing as well. You know, I guess Crucible I haven't heard anything about. So, I mean, when we start talking industry ships, do you think we're really just focused in on cargo repairs and like mining, or do you think we start branching into, you know, some more of the transports and some of the exploration? Like, where do you see CIG going next as far as what ships are being released? And does this really just mean ships that are already in the pipeline, or does this start tapping into, I guess, new concept sales that may be coming?
Yeah, there's going to be a mix of that, right? It's got branch off over time into more variation on industrial work that you can do. But at first, as we see, they're going to focus on doing some hauling missions, some transport missions. So basically something very easy where most ship can play that role, have some cargo that you move from point A to B and you get paid for it, and over time introduce the other ones. We see that there's going to be the Prospector introduced in 3.0 if they stick to what they said, but it's going to be very basic mining. There's going to be very basic other things over time that's going to get added, and then it's going to get more refined as time goes on. And yes, I can see them, picture them having new concept ships, maybe something like a tow truck or tugboat, we're just saying, because there's money there for them to basically bring in and finance this whole project. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead, Clem.
I'm expecting to see a tugboat. That may be the one thing that I expect to see that doesn't happen. But I mean, I kind of look at it and go, you need something out there because not everybody can afford an interest to haul their ships around.
Right. I hadn't even considered that. I mean, I thought about it on more of a local scale, you know, moving ships around in a space dock or something like that. But yeah, to be able to latch on and act as an emergency quantum drive, essentially, that's really, I like it.
Wow. It'll be interesting to see. And I think some of that's going to be complicated by the fact where they start talking about how docking is going to work and how ship-to-ship connections are going to happen and how you're not necessarily going to be able to go, you know, long distances, or you're not even going to be able to travel with ships connected to each other unless there is some sort of docking mechanism there. So that would be almost going against some of what the design they've talked about to a certain extent, although if it's done very specifically and not just, hey, we're connecting our ships via a soft dock, now we can fly, you know, I think that opens up some possibilities there.
But you would need a ship's design for that, because the quantum engine you're going to need to be able to do those quantum jump, or the how do they call the regular jump between systems. You need a jump engine large enough to carry not only your little ship, but the big ship you're carrying along with you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean, from balance, you're talking about, like I said, a Connie-sized ship that's all jump engine and power plants.
Right.
Weapons are not going to be non-existent. Shields are going to be non-existent. You know, even crew berthing is going to be non-existent. You're going to have a rack of stuff in there. I've got 26 components that can blow up on me when I jump. Hey, I mean, that's what we're.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I see for balance.
They could even implement where you have some pods that you detach from it. You go attached to the hull you're carrying along, and they're all networked together. And when you jump, you basically, it kind of think of extending your shield or extending your quantum jump bubble or your space jump, system jump.
Yeah, but then you're going to have people dragging asteroids back to base. I can see that already.
Hey, well, talk about us, right?
Well,
That
I
would
mean,
be hilarious.
that would be
would be
hilarious, but maybe another way that's implemented is more of a tying the avionics of the two ships together via a module that you end up putting on the cockpit of the other ship or something like that. So I think there's ways to do it. And then, if you were even to take it a bit further, if you were to actually connect into the other ship, you could then, it's not as much of a complication to deal with how do you haul another ship. It's more of a, I need to be in close proximity to you. I need to give you some guidance, but ultimately I'm using the equipment on your ship to do the jump, to actually control it, and then you're not worried about giant engine sizes and everything too. So I think there's some other ways they could actually get something like that into the game.
And there's those two type of jumps, right? A quantum jump is a straight line. You just jump from point A to point B in hyperspace kind of thing.
Right.
But when you're jumping between system, we're going to have to navigate through those kind of wormhole. And imagine now that this small ship that latch on this wreck or big ship that you want to carry on. So you have to navigate that big ship. And now we're thinking thrusters and navigations and all of this through the jump point. That's going to be a challenge.
An actual jump point would be almost impossible.
I mean, what about like the smaller size repair ship? Like you've got a dedicated craft, which I think you could do with almost any cargo ship. The Freelancer comes to mind, where you're going to jump through after a crucible, or not a crucible. Somebody took their carrack somewhere, they got it busted up, they can't get back, and now you're jumping through to go in and fix their ship and get them out,
definitely.
kind of thing.
Any cargo ship I think would be good for that. It'd be good.
What about
dedicated that has like the hooks and things so that you can latch on securely to a ship, like you said, like kind of a mini crucible.
Well, like the Crucible had a repair station for repairing components specifically. Wouldn't you need something along those lines, except in a smaller form factor?
Right.
Unless you just have the ability to bring the components along with you, and then all of a sudden you're talking about more like a AAA truck that stops on the side of the road to help you out. They've got what they need to replace components inside the, in your truck or your car, or whatever broke down to a certain extent. Where it's minor repairs or minor assistance, as opposed to, I'm a mobile shop that's going to fix you up completely.
But you've got, if you had something, especially like say Connie size, you could have, imagine like you take your machining equipment and you just put it in the back there in some sort of a module where you just slide this whole thing in and bolt it down, and now you've got your machine shop in the cargo bay. And anything that can fit in there, you can fix.
And there shouldn't be anything restricting the cargo plates that are inside the Connie from actually locking down like a workshop or something like that.
Right, exactly.
I think it'd just be a matter of power.
Panel vans, there's people that go around and do mobile body work and all kinds of stuff. So
yeah, well, and I think that gets into an area where it's really exciting and interesting to talk about as far as the level of customization inside ships, and hopefully what we see inside the hangars today is kind of an indicator of what we're going to be able to do in ships later. And we see it mentioned in some areas and not, it kind of falls by the wayside in others, but that opens up a ton of options here, where we're not talking about industry ships, we're talking about industry as a gameplay, and how do you fit that within your ship that you have. So
one aspect we haven't discussed is from a programming standpoint, a game coding. I don't know how difficult all of this we're talking about would be, because you have the mesh of the ship and the mesh of the space, and you have to kind of attach everything together and make sure that all the components, the parts, all of those pieces that they're programmed move, and work together. Like chewing a ship, that's all nice, but someone's got a program somewhere, the artist and the coder, all of these pieces that have to detach themselves and be grinded in this reclaimer grinder.
Well, I think a lot of that's the design is intended to kind of make it look good. Because I think if you look at the grinder, you can more or less just throw a part through there visually, use some BFX to make it all flashy, and then the part just disappears when it gets out of sight. There's a lot of cheating they can do with a lot of the game code that's already there. Not that I expect CIG to cheat so much as there's solutions to making something go away.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think it just ends up depending on how. Oh, go ahead, Bruno. Yeah. When they, in this most recent ATV, they, to a certain extent, they kind of talked about working on the reclaimer, and when it actually takes damage, it's supposed to show the internal components that are associated with that, and it makes you almost wonder if that same level of detail is going to be applied to parts individually. Does it stick with the part, or is it associated with the ship? Because if you toss something into a grinder and it's the wing of a Gladius, and the Gladius is already programmed to say, when my right wing is shot, I'm going to display these parts that are inside of there. There may be some things it can tap into as far as the database and how it displays that, that inside the grinder, but that's a whole nother level of complication there.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you finish your thought, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up Salvage.
I wonder how much of the grinder is literally just there to look good, as opposed to being accurate.
I don't know. I mean, you got to wonder a little bit about that as far as the Orion as well. Working in the back and doing sorting and everything. Probably the simplest solution is to say it happens behind component doors and you don't actually see it happening. You're registering that sort of behavior via screens and interfaces. Then you don't have to worry about I guess displaying it in a way. It's happening according to screens and displays as opposed to visually.
Well, when you think about the Orion, that there's an extra challenge with the parts always in motion as it move in space, and so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, perfect. So that's Salvage and Industry Ships. Guys, we appreciate you watching. We'll have the next episode actually uploaded in a few days, so make sure you're checking back for the number of ships and player balance discussion, which is going to probably be as complicated as it sounds. So thank you guys. Stay tuned. We'll catch you later.